So, willkommen zurück. Ich hoffe, jetzt die ganze Verdauungsmüdigkeit setzt jetzt nicht schon ein oder vielleicht seid ihr mittendrin. Wie dem auch sei, jetzt wird es sehr spannend. Es geht um Journalismus im weitesten Sinne. Das Seltsame, was ich ja persönlich finde, ist in letzter Zeit, wenn man sich Zeitungen, Fernsehen oder was auch immer anguckt, man hat ab einem gewissen Punkt immer das Gefühl, die Herren Journalisten schreiben voneinander ab. Und das, was man mal investigativen Journalismus vielleicht in den 50ern und 60ern oder vielleicht auch 70ern genannt hat, ist fast nicht mehr greifbar. Also sehr selten nur noch. Und da gibt es ja eine Internetplattform, ihr kennt sie alle, wikileaks.org, die so viele, hat jemand mal geschrieben, so viele Knüller, Scoops rausgebracht haben in ihrer kurzen Existenz wie die Washington Post in den letzten 30 Jahren. Man weiß also recht wenig über diese Organisation und wir hier von der re-publica freuen uns sehr, dass wir einen von den Herren hier ans Mikrofon bringen und deswegen jetzt von Wikileaks Daniel Schmitt. Herzlichen Applaus bitte.
Ja, Test 1, 2, gut. Der Ton ist da, jetzt fehlt noch die Präsentation. Okay, die ist auch da. This presentation will be held in English. We actually plan to be here with both our public representatives, Julian Assange and me. Julian is still in the United States after the press conference we had there last week, so I'm the only one who is going to be speaking here, but nevertheless, it's going to be in English. So, what actually is WikiLeaks? Just for our own assessment, it would be very interesting to see how many people here know about what we are doing. If you could just give me a sign of your hands, okay. And how many people of you knew about what we were doing before we released the video last week? Actually, that's a good sign. WikiLeaks is a platform that is publishing information. Actually, we're not publishing information directly, but we're publishing documents. We accept any kind of classified, censored, or otherwise restricted material that anonymous sources can provide to us, and we will publish this on our platform in a manner that it's not censorable by anyone that is trying to attack this publication. We do not, and this is important to understand, we do not accept any kind of rumor. So if you've just written up a document yourself describing that your boss is not a nice person or your neighbor is evading taxes or whatever, this is not material that we are dealing with. We are anonymous in a way that our sources are anonymous. We do not keep any information about people visiting the website, giving us material, reading the material, or whatsoever. We are structured in a way that the platform is uncensorable. I'll be speaking about this in a bit. So we have developed mechanisms to make sure that whoever is trying to legally attack our publication or technically attack it, cannot take a publication down again. And what we do, and that's important as well, is perfectly legal. So it's not an operation that is just benefiting from the obscurity of the internet, but actually we are protected under various media laws all around the world. This also is very important in respect to sources working with us, because the communication of sources with us is protected under these laws as well. We are, as far as we can tell, the only functional whistleblowing platform that the world has. So there are some others. There, for example, is a new platform that the European Union is offering to expose fraud within the European Union. The platform has a lot of small print if you read it carefully, and it's not actually protecting any of the sources. So it's not really functional in the way that we think a platform for whistleblowers has to be functioning. We are a public service. This is very important to understand as well. So our goal is to reach as many people in the general public as possible. This is because we believe that a lot of the people that are out there know about what is going on behind closed doors. In many cases, these people know about corruption, they know about abuse, they know about torture or whatever there is to know, and they cannot cope with it. They feel morally bad about knowing this and not knowing where to put this information, and that's what we are offering. And we are a promise without compromising. So we are giving the promise to a source that we will publish their material if it meets the criteria. And we are not going to break that promise no matter what comes. This is also, I think, very important, and I'll be discussing this a little later on. We also are, for whoever here is representing the media, we are your premier supplier for fresh documents. Whatever we publish is something you most likely have not seen before, and we'd like to give this to you so that you can relay it to the general public, that you can write scoops about it, and you can get all the fame for it because you are writing the story. We're making, in that respect, investigative journalism more affordable as it was announced in times where investigative journalism is suffering from cost cuts as all other parts of journalism are. And as investigative journalism usually is the most cost-intense part of journalism, the journalism branch, we are trying to make it more effective and more cost-effective. The platform, and that is the last detail, is also uncensoring your articles. That means if your publication has been legally attacked, and for example, this is a big problem in the UK, if you have been forced to take down an article that you have written as a journalist because someone does not feel comfortable about it, or there are legal structures to suppress your publication, then we can help with this, and we will republish your article on our platform to make sure that it stays in the light of the public. I'll be talking about this in a little bit as well. So how does all this work? Just so you all have like a 101 understanding of what we're doing. All material that we receive is verified through a very large and robust process that we are offering. So we are working with around 1,000 experts from all over the world, from all walks of life. These are technologists, cryptographers, journalists, human rights workers, and general activists or lawyers. All these people share the common base that they want to support our project. They all work for free, basically, as volunteers, the same as all our staff is working for free. And these people are engaged with whatever things we need to be done. So every document we receive is being passed to a random number of people. All these people do not know each other. And these people work on the verification of material. As we can cover different angles, like the technological angle, the journalist angle, maybe some specialists from certain countries knowing about certain historic facts or whatever, we have a very robust process for this verification, and from what we know, this verification has not failed yet once. We have never lost a source. That means that all our protection mechanisms that we have for sources work, and we had never had been forced to expose anyone. We never had to take down any publication, no matter what we published. I'll be giving some examples in a bit. We have never lost a lawsuit, despite the fact that we receive a legal threat about once every 2 weeks. And we have never lost a server. This also is very important. It's very cheap in these days to rent a server somewhere, and whoever feels that he wants to contribute to growing our infrastructure can just do so by renting a server, donating it to us. It will be integrated, you will not have any technical issues, and you will not have any legal trouble with it. What does the media say about this? We received quite recent feedback. One of the earlier quotes from the project was CBS News saying that freedom of speech has a number, and this number is our IP address in the internet. The Guardian says that we are an uncensorable and untraceable depository for the truth. The National, as it was quoted before, has stated that we've produced more scoops than the Washington Times has in the past 30 years. And Tagesspiegel quite recently, for example, titled or wrote that we are the most successful journalist endeavor in the world, given the number of publications, just to be precise there. We've received quite some awards for the work we are doing, which helps us to grow our credibility as well. So in 2008, we received the Economist's Index on Censorship Award in the UK. Last year, Ars Electronica gave us a reward in the digital community category. We have received the New Media Days Award 2009, and in the last year, Amnesty International UK has also given us an award in the New Media category. So that is a bit about what we are doing, and let's say, the scope of this project. Some examples to maybe understand better what we are doing and how this is all working. One angle is, as I said before, that we are publishing documents that have not been revealed before. So in some way we are publishing the unpublished. One example, quite famous in the last few days, since the release last week, is the collateral murder video. It's a video showing, it was filmed out of an Apache helicopter from the gun site. It shows the attack of this helicopter of civilians in Iraq. More than a dozen civilians have been killed in this attack. It shows a subsequent attack of this helicopter on a van, and it shows how that Apache helicopter is then attacking a building with an unknown number of civilians in it. 2 Reuters contract workers have been killed in this incident as well. What is important about this video, and this is why I'm giving these examples, is to understand the facets that we can cover. So this video was requested by the Reuters press agency for more than 2 years under the Freedom of Information Act. And it's one of the perfect examples that show us that transparency, while there are laws like the Freedom of Information Act to create transparency, that transparency, when it comes top to bottom, is not granted in many cases where it actually would be important to grant. So transparency can be enforced bottom-up by people that have this material and that agree that there's no reason to deny such information to the public. We've published this in full. The video has received 3,500 headlines within the first 72 hours and worldwide, and more than 4.5 million views on YouTube, which is just one of the outlets we published the video on. This detail will be important in a bit as well. Another thing we have published were the handbooks from Guantanamo Bay. We published the so-called service operation procedures for Guantanamo, standard operating procedures for Guantanamo for 2003 and 2004. What was important about these publications is that we received the handbook for 2003 first. We published it, the American administration said, oh, that is old news. This was published a long time ago, and even in 2004 things had changed. So what was enabled by publishing this in full and not just writing an article about it was that someone else in Guantanamo who had access to this document said, well, I have the manual for 2004 and nothing has changed, and it even got worse in some respects. So here's my manual for 2004. So we published the one for 2004 and we made a side-by-side forensic style comparison. And we could just expose where the differences in the wording in these 2 manuals were, and that nothing had changed, and really it actually had been going worse. We published the Kunduz Feldjäger report, which for those who don't speak German is like similar to the military police that the German military has. It's a group that is engaged in the war in Afghanistan. This publication was very important because this is a very heated debate here in Germany. The whole war is not really something that all of Germany supports. Actually, the support for this war is very small. According to a late CIA paper that we have published recently, more than 80% of Germans are opposing that war and Germany's involvement in it. What is important about this paper is that actually this report was kept very secret by German military, but some of the news outlets in Germany, like Bild and Spiegel, and I think the Süddeutsche as well, they had this report, but no one cared to publish. They all just wrote their articles about it. They gave some snippets to hype this paper up, but no one cared to give German citizens all the information that was given in this report to found or to have a sound basis for forming an opinion about our engagement in that war. So this is an example why it's important that journalists do not keep documents just for themselves, but they actually share these documents with other journalists and the general public. We've exposed corruption and murder in Kenya. This was a big story as well. We exposed more than $3 billion in corruption in Kenya. This had a very big influence on the Kenyan elections in 2007, so that is another angle we can reach. We can have a very direct impact on the political sphere. Depending on who you're asking, we have had an influence on about 10 to 15% of the vote in 2007. We have also exposed more than 1,700 politically motivated killings in Kenya. The result of this publication was that after a general uproar in the world media, the United Nations had to take on this topic and start an independent investigation on this. Again, this would all not have happened if just the media had published some excerpts and a few outlets would maybe have been able to publish their stories about these topics. We had very large exposure of Bank Julius Baer, which is one of the largest Swiss private banks. We have published a lot of documentation about hundreds of millions in offshore vehicles in the Cayman Islands. It has exposed how this bank and their customers are creatively seeking structures to hide money from taxes, to creatively make this, the whole money operation a little bit more efficient. And it has been the most prominent attack on our publication. So Bank Julius Baer were the first ones that tried to shut down WikiLeaks. They were successful to shut down one of about 500 domains that we have for 1 week. This did not stop the general public at all to see the material, and basically it backfired because everyone worldwide was just getting interested in what this Swiss bank is trying to hide. So this was an unsuccessful attack. Since then, the people that are trying to attack us legally have gotten a bit more careful. We published the loan book for the Kaupthing Bank in Iceland. This was very important as well. It was the revelation of how basically a whole nation in respect to this bank was cheated out of their money. The whole Icelandic crisis bankrupted all of Iceland. It's still an ongoing debate. And it is a very important document to understand who participated in bankrupting this nation. So again, if this document would not have been published, some news might have reported about it, and they would have chosen which examples out of that report they would have mentioned, maybe after some political agenda. But it would not have created the transparency upon which every citizen could have based or could have made up an opinion or could have gotten a full picture of the situation. We've also published about 6,500 reports from the Congressional Research Service in the US. This is a taxpayer-funded operation that is doing research for the Congress in the US. So if any congressman wants to know something about a certain topic, he can consult this service and they will publish a report about it. These reports are very valuable because they are very detailed, they are non-partisan, they can cover any subject the congressman is interested in, and there's a big budget for this. We published all of the reports that had been published before because these reports are denied to the public. And this is a good example where the public and lots of academics, the press, general citizens, and whoever is interested in this information has tried to open source this data, to open up the government for publishing this, and it did not work. So again, what we created is that we enforced the transparency here bottom up, and we sort of enforced the concept of open data in respect to these publications. Another example is the Galvin Report. This was a report that was published in the UK about the expense scandal in the European Parliament. This paper was also published, for example, by the Taxpayers Association in the UK. A lot of mistakes were made when publishing this. The Taxpayers Association had also had to take down the publication they had. This is a good example, if people want to read up on it, on what can go wrong if you don't do such exposures correctly and if you do not have the legal and technical means to protect such a publication. There are many more examples, a few prominent ones for Germans. We had large parts of the toll collect contracts that we published late last year. We've also published the Ratio Farm investigative report from the prosecutor, for example, which gave some transparency in how Ratio Farm, as a pharma concern, was paying off paying off doctors here in Germany for prescribing their products. We've published the South African Competition Commission, for example, which created transparency in how banks are feeing with each other for, let's say, withdrawals of money at a cash machine and similar. We also published, which was very famous, censorship lists for censorship systems for the internet in large parts of the world. So from China to Thailand up to Western censorship systems that we have in Denmark, for example, Finland, Norway, and other countries. That is one aspect. The second aspect, as I mentioned before, is that we can help the media outlets that are under fire for their publications. So we can come to the rescue and republish material that actually has been correctly researched, that does not hold any defamatory statements, but that still had to be taken down due to legal pressure. We see this issue mainly in the UK. I'll give 2 examples to show what the different angles here are. We had a document in respect to Barclay Bank, and this document showed how Barclay Bank is structured legally, how they entertain a lot of subsidiaries all around the world, and how the bank makes it possible to funnel money from that actually would have had to have been taxed in the UK, how that money is funneled through their internal structure to different countries, avoiding the paying taxes and other things. This report was published by The Guardian, and The Guardian was immediately injuncted. They had to take down that publication. The publication was also available on our platform, and The Guardian started writing in articles that their readers can read the full report on WikiLeaks. Immediately, this was injuncted as well, so The Guardian was denied to report that we had published this paper. What happened was that a parliamentarian stood up in a parliamentary debate and gave to protocol that we had published this material and where it could be found on WikiLeaks, and The Guardian then could write stories about a parliamentary debate that said that we had published this report. And in the end, what came out was that truth prevailed and the reader was informed. A similar incident, yet a little bit more sophisticated, was Trafigura. This is a commodity trader based in the Netherlands and the UK. Trafigura was involved in a large scandal in 2008 where a ship full of toxic waste, toxic oil waste, was dumped into the ocean on the Ivory Coast. More than 100,000 people got sick. Naturally, the UK press started writing about it, so The Guardian, The Independent, BBC, everyone was writing about it, doing TV pieces, radio pieces, all sorts of different investigative stories. And one after the other, these stories had been injuncted again. So up to today, we can see that these stories disappear from newspaper archives, which means that our historic record is not complete anymore. I'll be talking about that as well in a bit. And from our editorial, I have this quote that there was a super injunction. So for those who are not familiar about super injunction, is that a super injunction means that a newspaper is not allowed to report that it had been injuncted about a certain topic. So you're completely gagged. You don't even only have a gag, but you're not allowed to talk about the gag. And this means that you can't even communicate to your reader anymore that actually there is a topic that you would like to report about and you're not allowed to report about it anymore. You can't even talk about who is suppressing you or who is telling you not to talk about it anymore. So we had this editorial piece that said that there are legal obstacles that cannot be identified, that involve proceedings that cannot be mentioned because they are secret court rulings that you cannot talk about. And this is all on behalf of a client who must remain secret. So you can't even tell who is forcing the press to shut up here. This is an ongoing issue, so up to today we see that more and more stories about Trafigura are disappearing from newspaper archives. And from our perspective, it would be very helpful if the press would just tell us about these incidents. There are many ways to contact us, and we can just make sure that they are republished with us. All the work you journalists had to put into these stories is not in vain. You can still have it in the light of the public. So this is a bit how you can help us and how we can help you in return. So we'd like to, and this is important that you understand that, a lot of the media worldwide, and especially here in Germany, I sometimes have the feeling, is seeing us as competition, but we are not. We are there to help you. WikiLeaks was created to help the media be able to make investigative journalism, to publish pieces that are of importance and are not just entertainment, to get access to information that you would want to do research on, that you would want to investigate and you would want to write a story about, that is being uncomfortable for people that are trying to do some shady things in this world. So help us analyze all of these tens of thousands of documents that we have that no one had a look at yet. There are so many scoops in there, and the scoops are not ours, but they are yours, and you can engage and you can write stories about it and get title pages with your newspapers or whatever you want. Gain credibility for the work you are doing. That is something that we experience. If you publish all your sources, then you will be transparent and readers will understand that the research you've been doing as a journalist is credible. This is the same thing that everyone in the academic world is doing. People that are publishing academic papers are opening up their resources, or the sources they have. This has to be done. You can't publish an academic paper without opening up your sources, because this is a question of credibility. And someone who is doing the same research based on your sources has to come to the same conclusion as you, at least in the ideal case. So any journalist who is working credibly and who wants to be transparent can help us by publishing his source material with us, by exposing his materials, and enable all his colleagues all around the world to use that material as well to write stories based on it. And maybe your colleague has another document that he keeps secret all the time, where the two of these documents together actually are what makes up the real story behind it. And you would never find out if you didn't open it up. So another possibility is that you can become part of our distributed submission system. That is something that will go live soon. This will mean that if you run a newspaper website, you can get a piece of code for us to put on your website, and this will enable all your readers to submit information to us using our anonymous mechanisms that we have, guaranteeing anonymity for your readers, guaranteeing that we will legally defend all this material and we take all the heat for it. And it will enable your readers to give you material. So this means that we will see that a certain document was submitted through your website, and you will get the exclusive right to it. You will get to write your story in a time frame defined by the reader, and when your story is ready, you can release the scoop, and we will publish the document, and together these two should be very powerful. You can also help us defend publications from legal threats. If you're a lawyer, or if your newspaper has lawyers, understand that our interests are the same as yours, because we are trying to defend the rights of the press and the freedoms of the press. So if you're a lawyer, or if you have lawyers that like challenges, help us. We offer challenges that no one else had before, and it's all fighting for the accuracy of a historic record. And in the end, as I said, we're always winning, so there's nothing much to lose about. But why? Maybe that is something that's not entirely clear yet. Why do you need to disclose all these sources, and why is it so important to publish these documents? From our experience, the information that is most kept secret, where people put in most effort to keep this secret, is the information that can trigger most reform in our society. All the people that know that if a certain document gets disclosed, it will change something and they will lose power, all these people put a lot of effort into keeping this information secret. So it is essentially important not only to selectively reveal such information in a newspaper article, but to reveal that information itself. Treating information that a source gives you like an asset and hiding it in your own closet is not maximizing the political impact that a certain document has. In the last few days, we had tons of media interviews because of this video we published, and basically every journalist I talked to was asking me that what is it that makes us so successful? Why are we receiving this material and not the classic media? And what we do is we disclose this material. That is the recipe to our success. We are not treating information a secret as it was treated in the organization where it was leaked from, but we are disclosing it to everyone else, and that is what a source wants. If a source gives you, as a journalist, gives you information, then the source wants that this information creates transparency in this world and creates a political impact. And this is why a source does not want you to treat this as your asset that is sitting in your closet, as an advantage you have over everyone else. And whoever has the biggest pile is the most successful journalist. That is not what a source wants. A source wants that this information gets out to as many people as possible. And this is by creating transparency. And ultimately, this is what the public can trust in. Again, if the public can read stories and they can read the source material, this is what they can rely on. In all the world where there's so much misperception and there's so much propaganda and there's so much information out there that no one can really judge on what is important and what is not important, what is misinformation, what is disinformation, what is maybe just someone writing after some political agenda. The only way to get credibility is by becoming transparent and by publishing the sources. So help us all to write that history, which is taken from the title that we picked. History is from our perspective, and that is what it boils down to. History is the only guidebook that we all have to develop into a good future, to find out what mistakes have been made in the past and what do we need to do to avoid these mistakes in the future. That is ultimately the only question that a journalist has to address. All you journalists out there, define what that guidebook will contain. It is your decision every single day to value or to judge what is the important information. What am I going to be writing about? Do I entertain people or do I give them information that they need? Do I think that people do not want information because they just want to be entertained? And how much am I maybe part of these people only wanting entertainment because I've been feeding them entertainment too much? Start getting real, start getting back to the real story, the information that is out there, and again, help us define responsibly what has to be written down in this historic guidebook that we have. Help us to keep the historic record straight. Wake up. Please, wake up and join the show. It's possible to make a real difference out there, and we'd like everyone here to become part of this. So that basically is what I was going to talk about. I'd have to express my gratitude to some people, and that is all our sources that are courageous enough to get in contact with us, to give us new material and to help us to expose corruption, torture, whatever misdeed there is out there. It is those investigative journalists that we would like to thank that have understood that we are not their competition, but we are actually there to protect them and to help them make their work more efficiently. It is to those people that are running our infrastructure, that are supporting us with servers, with code, whatever they are developing for us. And this, last but not least, to our fantastic lawyers that are defending us week after week and defending all the publications that serve you and the general public. Okay, so thanks. I think that was it for this. So, thanks. I don't carry a watch, so I have no idea what time it is. Whoever has questions, I guess there should be microphones or so around. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'll also be around after the talk, so whoever wants to do interviews or finds out more detail, get involved or whatever is happily invited.
Hi. My name is Julius. Do you have problems with spam? So if I want to protect my things, I could spam you with a lot of junk and you can filter it out.
Well, that is one of the possible problems there are, so that we would receive so many publications that are just junk that it takes us a great deal to work through them. We have a mechanism to prevent that sort of, and that is if you submit us information, we are asking you a couple of questions, and these questions need to be answered in order for us to look at the material. And that includes, for example, why it is of moral importance or political, historic importance whatsoever. It also includes why you think this should be published. And let's say this is an economic effort for anyone who wants to spam us with junk, and so far this has not happened, at least not in a large scale. I mean, as any other journalist, we receive weird letters from people, we receive documents that had been self-written or whatever, but it's not to a level that we cannot handle it. Jeremy.
Hello, Daniel. I'm
Yes.
Jeremy Zimmerman, co-founder and spokesperson for La Quadrature du Net. I got a question in the form of a troll. Some have thought that for the latest leak of the collateral murder,
Yes.
that many articles were discussing about whether or not there was an RPG, whether or not there was engagement with small arms fire,
Yes.
and not discussing enough about the simple fact that the US commandment lied about it. So my question, it's a bit of the question that Colbert asked to Julian 2 nights
Yes.
ago, is when do you cross the line between publishing the source and getting to the editorial? Because calling it collateral murder, making this collection
Yes.
of surrounding material was a bit of an editorial work.
Yes, it
How
was.
do you make this choice? And
From my personal perspective, this line had not been drawn clearly enough. So WikiLeaks is publishing material, and that is what the project is doing. And we have also published the raw video without any commentary, without any editorial byline. On the other hand, naturally, as there are many journalists involved, these journalists perceive it as their duty to write analysis about a certain piece or to make it into a documentary movie like it was made into in that respect. An editorial comment is absolutely natural in the journalist world. That is, from our perspective, also something that is very important to do, because it's part of the duty of a journalism is to put certain information with all the knowledge he has into the right light for the reader. So it was, from my perspective, perfectly okay to give it this editorial byline. It's just that there is a misunderstanding, maybe slightly, between what WikiLeaks was publishing and that Collateral Murder is a journalist product that came out of this publication. So I hope that answers your question.
I know that you're in the middle of a fundraising campaign right now.
Yes.
And one of your strategies has been to remove access to some of the leaked documents
Yes.
in order to show readers kind of the service that you're providing and what's missing if those documents are gone.
Yes.
Were there moral qualms about taking those documents down? And what are some of the ideas that you have for how to sustain the operations that you're doing? And what are some of the costs that need to be sustained?
So in December we were forced to take down the website because we've become too popular to sustain the website given the infrastructure we had. And there was no more leverage money from all the private money people had put in for 3 years to grow this infrastructure meaningfully. So we were forced to take down the wiki, which is very resource intense, and to also take down that archive in order to make people understand they need to donate. This was one of the toughest decisions that we ever had within this project, because all of us, we love working on this project, and it is very dear to us to be able to work every day. So every day since then, we are missing a piece in our lives, basically, in our daily lives where we would just like to work regularly as we did before. So that was a hard decision to do, but it was the only way to make people understand that we need more support. We've been trying to do that for 3 years before, and despite putting up more and more links saying help us to stay independent, donate to the project and all these things, people overlook these kind of things when surfing the website, and it's all available, and there's you don't suffer from anything. So we all hope we will never have to do that again. The basic operating cost for the infrastructure is around $200,000 a year. And that is because people may think this is quite some money, but that is because we entertain servers in a couple of dozen countries all around the world. Not all of these countries necessarily are as cheap as hosting is in Europe, for example. But this has to be part of our infrastructure to stay independent and uncensorable and to not be attacked as easily. So that is the basic cost. I mentioned before that everyone in the project is working voluntarily, so we do not receive any gratification or salary for what we are doing. And if we would pay the 5 people that are working full-time on this project a basic salary, as well as be able to cover some of the travel expenses to conferences, some communication cost, all these kind of things, then we're talking around $600,000 a year. We have by now raised that money for this year. I hope very much that as soon as I mention this now, this does not mean that people think we do not need any further support. That is a little bit the fear that we have, at least I personally have. But we will be able to come back soon. Since December, people are working on recreating the website, on enhancing infrastructure, on offering new code for some solutions that we need, and to generally bring back the site. So I'm sure this will happen kind of soon, and we have an operational budget and everything for the next year. So I hope that answers the question. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sebastian, and first of all, I really like to thank you and all the team at WikiLeaks for this great work, and
Thanks.
it's really impressive to see that. Some weeks ago, I just wrote a work about censorship in Germany, about this debate, and I recognized that basically half of my work was depending on documents that were published on WikiLeaks, and since the website is offline, my work was a little bit more complicated, but it worked. But still, I hope it's online soon. My interest now is there's on the one hand side this legal world where you try to defend yourself, and I have heard the interview, I think it was you gave it to the Küchenradio.
Yes.
And where you mentioned some of another part of, I would say, attack on you, like American Secret Service that may be following you, and maybe you are getting more and more pressures. I mean, we all know big companies and big military operation services, they all have like forces we don't expect. So my question to you is, how do you think, can you defend these pressure you have there? And what strategies do you think you need to add to what you're doing on the legal base to have yourself protected? You know what I mean?
Yes, well, we are legally protected, but generally if, and that I think goes for about every country, that is a problem every journalist has, is that as soon as a journalist possesses information or has good sources, then someone has an interest in finding out what these sources are. So whether this is a government or intelligence agencies or just corporations, they all want to know who is leaking information to a journalist. So I think this is a general problem that everyone who is dealing with this has. It's not a legal problem, it's more an operational issue where you have to make sure that whatever you do, tracking your communication with sources is not as easy as it might be. So generally, many of our people have a quite technological background. We have good encryption mechanisms. The mechanisms we use to communicate with each other are based on strong cryptography. So that is something you can start with to make sure that no one can easily get intelligence on what you're communicating with each other. Then you can make sure that I, for example, as a public spokesperson, do not know about any service we are entertaining, and whatever you want to do to me, you won't get any information about how to shut us down because I simply do not know about it. And that is a bit how this whole project is structured, and is also why a lot of our people are not known to anyone, just because we need to make sure that they can work, and they can work without being disturbed by someone. And yeah, that is how one of the angles how we are trying to address this problem. But generally, it's just about being careful. I guess that is the main issue there. Okay. If there are no more questions, that is...
One more question.
One more over there, okay.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. It was great. You said something about people being entertained too much, and you said we want people to wake up, see what's really going on. And my question is that usually, well, to be glib, there are people who are already interested. You're kind of preaching to converted here. We already care about that stuff. That's why we're here. We're kind of on it, as are you in many ways. Lots of people, and I'm not saying it's a clear divide, obviously, but lots of people just want to be entertained. In that sort of meta sense, what do you think about trying to get more people interested in what WikiLeaks is doing and trying to get people who aren't usually interested involved?
Well, I had an interview once for a TV show here in Germany, and there were three topics that this TV show wanted to discuss, and one was the WikiLeaks project, and two other topics were just about entertainment. And when I talked to this journalist, we talked for quite a while about the idealism behind our project, and the journalist from the TV show said to me that she thinks it's incredible how idealistic we are, and she does not share that idealism because she always gets the feeling that people just want to be entertained and they don't want all this hard information. So my only reply to that could have been, or was actually, that by giving 2/3 of her show to entertainment and just picking 1/3 to on a topic that is actually something substantial, she is making that decision, and she is the one that is influencing people into perceiving that entertainment is more important than actual content or actual information. That is that is a question of conditioning. People need to be confronted with this, and if the people are confronted with whatever over a certain period, they will just adopt to it, and it will feel like natural. And after a while, they won't even remember that there was less content-related things on TV or in the news. It is just about reaching out to them and making them understand that it can be challenging and that there are things they need to know about, and confronting them with it. And I think that'll solve it all. That is a question, again, of the responsibility of journalists and defining what will be written down in this historic record that we are defining in newspapers all around the day, all around the world every day, again and again. Yes.
My name is Richard Leyland. You mentioned about the validity of taking an editorial line.
Yes.
I just want to kind of challenge that a little. Journalists, of course, are accountable. They're internally accountable,
yes,
and they're accountable externally with various laws, legislations that may be EU-wide, specific within country. If you're taking an editorial line, where's your accountability?
Well, it's the same as with any other journalists involved, or any other journalist producing a journalist piece as well. The video clearly mentions who has been part of creating that editorial statement, and it's in the responsibility of these journalists to...
You're hidden.
No, we're not. The names are clearly in there. And again, what I said before, I think it was, from my personal perspective, I think it was suboptimal that this line was not drawn clearly enough. That there is WikiLeaks who is publishing this unedited raw video, and then that there is a journalist piece, which is Collateral Murder, which was produced by a couple of journalists that are mentioned at the end of this video. This line was not drawn clearly enough, from my personal perspective. But that, again, is also due to the resources we have, and there was a bit of time pressure involved, and just a lot of work that had to be done. So we are constantly learning from these experiences, and I think, at least for the Afghan video, there are some lessons that we could learn from now that will be handled differently for the next video we are publishing. So that is why feedback to us also is very important, just to have that said as well. It's not like we don't want any feedback, or that we think whatever we do is completely fail-safe. No one has done such a project before, and every day we perceive on how we can do it a little bit more efficient, or how we what is optimal or suboptimal, for example. So thanks for the feedback. Okay, so I think that's the first talk ever that was was finished early. Thanks a lot for all your attention, and have a nice rest of re-publica. I hope there's more important stuff to hear about.
Vielen Dank, Daniel Schmitt.